Hello. We're going to do a slightly more challenging sequence today, and it's come up in the last week with one of my clients, and so we're just going to move through it, and I'll give you as specific of instructions as I can as we go. So if you're looking for a challenge, let's play with this one. You're going to start on your mat on hands and knees. And really give yourself the opportunity to spread your fingers wide on the mat, anchor your palms down into the floor, and then check your spine. You really want it to be nice, long, neutral, so that it's like a flat board could lie across your back. Yeah. Ground down into that position before you allow yourself to just stretch up into downward dog. And then as you take your spine up to the sky, I want you to make sure that you're prioritizing your long, straight back. And so we're not so worried yet about the legs being straight or the heels touching the floor. We really want to make sure that your spine isn't rounded, your shoulders aren't forward over your wrists. So you're going to press into the palms, push the tailbone away from you, and slowly reach your bum up into downward dog. You can play with your heels, you can play with straightening the legs a little bit, but just make sure that at no point do you sacrifice your straight back for straight legs. And you're just gonna mess there for a minute. And then take your right heel and reach it up to the sky. So as we go to stretch this heel to the sky, keep this right hip from opening. We're not going to open it yet. So what I want you to find is pressing into the palms and then pushing that heel to the sky, keeping the right hip rolled to the floor. Stretching up as high as you can lift the heel without rolling the hip upward at all. So there's almost like a turn down with the right hip to try and keep that long line in the body. And then once you found that, then let the heel come into the bum and begin to open into the fire hydrant dog. So then you can feel yourself turning the pelvis on the top of that left leg bone. Yeah. Nice. Well, once you've got that settled, let's bring that heel right back up to the sky and then sweep the knee forward to land in your pigeon. Drop the knee at the base of the right wrist, stretch your left leg back behind you, and uncurl the back toes. Hang out here for a second. You're going to just start to analyze what's going on in your body. So allow your weight to sink down into your hips. Notice if you are being led forward at all, if there's any possibility that you want to move down onto elbows, that's totally available if it feels good in your body. What you're looking for here is your back hips to be even so that one hip isn't sinking closer to the floor than the other. If your blocks are handy, you're welcome to play with these. Common props are to put the block underneath that right hip. You also might choose to just let your head drop down on it. That takes some tension often out of the neck and shoulders. Possibly you'll find that you can drop your head right down by resting your sternum on the block and then letting the head come over the front end of the block, resting down. The whole idea is to start to let that right hip find some release in here. So you have to go slow, breathe deep, and be patient. It's a nice deep opening in through that hip pigeon. And be patient here. There's no rush for you to move. There's no rush for you to make the movement be faster. I often say that pigeon is like taking a knot out of a gold chain. Taking the knot out of this hip requires patience and gentleness, the same way you would need if you were going to try and untangle a knot in a gold chain. So we'll just give that another breath or two. You're noticing in your breath if it's getting tighter, then perhaps that means you just want to lift up a little bit and come until your breath feels really full again. And if your breath isn't tight, it's giving you permission, you are welcome to go deeper. But you're always watching what your breath might be telling you in a pose. To come out of that pigeon pose, you're going to walk your hands back up, curl your back toes under, and then reach back. So when you come into your downward dog here, you will want to let blood flow right back into that right hip socket. So you might be swaying your hips a little bit. You can play here. You could be in just a runner's lunge, pushing the right heel back, left knee down. You could also take it right back up to a three-legged dog. Or you could practice your fire hydrant dog. Any of those poses will help you bring blood right back into the leg. And that's what you'll want to do. So once you've let circulation come right back into the right leg, let's do the same sequence with the left. Take your left heel up, really pressing through the palms, reaching through the left heel, not allowing that left hip to stretch up to the sky. The right leg only as straight as it can be so that your back can be a long straight line. Lifting the heel without opening the hip. Taking a couple breaths in that position. And then pulling the heel down towards the bum. Opening the knee to the sky. Just allowing the pelvis to move open on the top of the right thigh bone. And then when you move from that position, you can come to pigeon on this left side. We are not symmetrical beings as much as we would love to be. So allow for any variation on this side that you need to take. Choose where you might want support. Is there a block required under your left bum cheek? Is there an opportunity for you to sink lower? Choose what you might need as you lower down. Any additional props that want to come into things can happen. You're also welcome to just stack your fists and drop your forehead onto those stacked fists. Now just remember, when you hang out in pigeon here, your goal is to have a really open and big breath. This is a pose that for a number of reasons might be difficult in your body. And if it is, you might be choosing to skip it. If the knee, back right knee is pressed into the floor too hard, if the hip, the knot is just really too tight in that left hip, that it doesn't feel good to be in this pose, the knee or the ankle hurt. It is not our goal in any of these poses to create any pain in your body. So just breathe and sink in, allowing your weight to release and relax. The lower you go, the more weight you put on the ankle, knee, and into the hip of the left side. So if you were to walk your hands and put your head down, you would find it more strenuous than if you stayed here and kept more weight supported by your upper body. So you're making the choice to do the version of the pose that is supported in your body, that is accessible and invited by your body. couple more breaths. To come out of pigeon, you walk your hands up, ground the palms into the mat, turn your back toes under, press yourself into a downward dog, find the long spine that we've been talking about, and allow the floodgates, the circulation to open back into the left leg. You can sway the hips side to side. You're more than welcome to just stay in a runner's lunge, pushing through the left heel, letting the right knee land on the ground. Alternately, you can go right back to three-legged dog and fire hydrant dog, keeping that heel reaching to the sky or opening up the hip. Nice. Once it really feels like you've got circulation flowing again in that left leg, then I want you to let your palms walk backwards to meet your feet. All right? And once you get to that position, you'll separate your feet a little bit wider and allow your bum to come down into a squat. Okay? So once you're into this squat, again, you might decide that you want blocks. You're welcome to put a block under your bum and just sit on it, because it really allows you then to open your spine up nice and tall. If the heels don't want to touch the floor, you could have a second rolled mat available and just let your heels rest on that rolled mat, right? You could sit on 2 blocks. So don't feel like you have to limit yourself to make the squat be anything in particular. Your goal is to be able to access movement in your hips. So as you come into this squat, perhaps you'll let the tailbone go, bring the elbows to the insides of the knees, and sit up as tall as you can. Pull your shoulders, stop them from rolling forward and roll them back. Let the crown of your head lift high, the tailbone sink low, and breathe here. You might want to rock. All of these are options. So you're choosing what you need in everything. Do you need props under your heels? Do you want to sit on blocks? Just breathe deep. Can you allow your breath to be big and open, even in this Malasana squat pose? Preparing ourselves for these twists that come next. We want our body to operate from the biggest joints first. So now we've got this hip joint to the top of our leg bone working really well. Now we want to start working on our spine. So from your squat, you're just going to walk your hands back out the end of your mat. Bring yourself to high push-up pose, and then choose how you might lower to the floor. So you might choose to drop to your knees, and as you draw your elbows in beside your ribs, keep your shoulders pulled down your spine, or you can do the same thing from tippy toes, no knees touching. There we go. Uncurl your toes. Draw your hands in beside you. Just lift the soles of the feet up to the sky and allow them to rock back and forth. That'll feel nice. We're going to do a little twist now. We'll start by just opening your arms up really wide. Okay? Take your left heel up to the ceiling. And then what you're going to do is push the left foot up to the sky. Roll, press into your palms, lift your chest off the floor a little bit, and then roll that foot across the body and start to take it towards the floor. It doesn't matter if it hangs out in the air, it doesn't matter if it touches the floor.
Just allow yourself to have a nice long twist, opening from the shoulders all the way to the hips. 2 more breaths. Roll yourself back and then prepare to do the other side. So you'll lift the right foot up, press into the palms, lifting the chest up enough that you're not squishing anything as you roll over, and take that foot across to the other side. I'm not doing it perfectly because I've got myself too close to the fireplace. A couple breaths here. Allow that to come back down and let your toes come over. Good, now we're gonna work on some upper back. Your hands are gonna slide down beside your chest. Your shoulders will lift to the ceiling and they'll pull down. Imagine them pulling as far away from your earlobes as possible. Palms can press into the floor. You can even feel like you ground your pelvis a little bit, and then just begin to lift up. Your palms aren't doing the work. The work is coming from your chest and back muscles. So you're sliding up, feeling the shoulder blades move down your back as you move. Okay. You might use an inhale to help you rise, and an exhale to help you settle. Nice. It's hard work. Your hands are here, and when you move, it's like they could almost float, right? Your strength isn't coming from your arm power. You're using chest and back. You also want to make sure your nose is pointed to the floor. Because the more you sort of feel like your head is moving up, the more you're going to use those little neck muscles. And we'd rather you just keep the gaze downward and really focused on pulling those shoulders down and lifting up. Do not lift so much that you hurt your low back, okay? That's probably enough. Curl your toes under, separate your knees a little bit, touch your toes together, and sweep back into forward hero pose. Allowing the hips to just settle down towards the heels. We're going to do a bit of a twist to rinse that out. But until that time in this forward hero pose, feel your top half of your spine reaching forward with your fingertips. The bottom half of your spine stretching back towards the sit bones, reaching towards the heels. Just imagine your breath creating length and space between each vertebrae of your back. And then ground into the palms and pull yourself back up until you are in your hands and knees position again. Watch your spine. The belly's not allowed to fold to the floor, so there's a big dip in the low back, and nor is it allowed to arch. So you're really thinking about creating a nice long flat back there. Okay? Nice? Good. So now you're going to take your left arm and reach it underneath. So what you're doing here is you're going to try hard not to sort of collapse into the left hip and just sort of fall down to the floor. Feel like you keep your left hip nice and tall, and the sweeping you're doing here is upper back. Reach and retract. Reach. If you want, you can pull that elbow up as if you're starting a lawnmower. Reach and retract. Reach and retract. Imagine the whole time that you're doing that, there's no movement in your hips, right? The hips stay really level. level. It's just your shoulders that are moving back and forth. Ground the left hand and then work on the same movement on your right. You're breathing as you're moving, keeping that right hip from collapsing. Nice work. Both hands come down, they ground. One more, you can choose this time if you'd like to sink back to a child's pose, or if you'd like to stretch up into one last downward dog, feeling how different your body's reacting to this downward dog compared to the last one that you tried, or the one at the very beginning of our session. And relax. There's one more pose that I'd like you to do before you fall into a final rest pose, and that is to let yourselves open up the chest and the shoulders even more over a rolled mat. Now, I guess the most important thing about this is where this end of the mat lands, and what I'd like you to consider as you go to roll over this mat is that you're going to go down to the bottom of your sternum, trace that around to the spot right in the middle. For women, it's right where the bra strap usually sits, and place that spot on the bottom of the mat. Choose if your legs will be bent or straight. Some of you actually might like to do Baddha Konasana, where your soles of your feet together and your knees will open. If you do have two blocks, it's nice to be able to just catch the thighs with those blocks and open. To get even more opening across the chest, allow your arms to lie out or to lie in cowboy surrender. So if you're going to put your arms up like this, my rule is that they have to rest on something. So the wrist and the elbow have to be able to relax. So if they're up in the air, then all this just stays tense, and we want it to actually open and release. So allow that arm to stay in a spot where the elbow and the wrist relax. Take deep breaths here. Bring the breath right down into your belly. You're just doing a more restorative version of a back bend. To end this practice today, choose how long you're able to stay in heart bed pose. That's this one. And just allow yourself as much time as necessary here. Up to 10 minutes, really. And then when the pose feels complete, allow yourself to have 1 minute where you remove all the props from underneath you and you let the spine be flat, and you practice Shavasana for a full minute once your heart bed is complete. Enjoy.